I'm
No,
pumped for this
okay.
episode.
You had to get it off your chest. Believe me, I get it. What was I going to say? Yeah, Get Vocal has a thing now where like they're like just pause all of their whatever, so nobody can release anything on Get Vocal, but they're going to come back in January with a way to monetize it for some people. That's what it's about. Because I mean, listen, we were doing it because it was free for us.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, well, it's free, but somebody had to pay for it. And we were, multicasting to Facebook and YouTube on 3 destinations without paying a dime. I mean, aside from the 2-hour time limit, but that didn't seem to bother us too much, aside from the one time. So it was, like, again, I get it, but in the meantime, it's like, well, then I guess we're going to have to go to StreamYard. And then if, we want to go to multi-destinations on StreamYard, we have to pay. And that may be something we can look into for 2021. But for this episode, I was like, let's just go right to YouTube because it's the most open. You don't technically need like everybody has a Gmail account. Everybody has a YouTube account.
Yep.
So what else? Dave is going to play Luke. I sent him the notes. I didn't really change anything except the end.
Okay.
I had him throw in, like right after you're not as such as you thought. My man. So how about them Knicks? Because I know apparently.
Yes, that works.
So, Luke would be a Knicks fan. He's from Harlem. He's a New York boy. So, and then you just say whatever because I know it's free agency, and I saw like an article.
I already got it because I've been talking. Yeah, I've been talking with
surprising everybody by not doing stupid shit. So I was like, okay, I don't know what a good or bad move for the Knicks would be, but you do. So here you go.
Yep.
Opportunity. I'm just basically going to let you go, and then we'll just slowly fade you out.
Nice.
And let me throw this up on Twitter. That we're live. And let me just share this with the groups. And also, apparently, the Freudian Sips and Guardian MH didn't release their Mental Health Avengers episode on Wednesday.
Okay.
Just us. So.
Oh. Okay.
I in the chat, I was like, all right, we're all going to release on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Here's the audio. Do what you want.
I remember.
And then I just sort of, it was like the rookie leading the skate out onto the ice, and all the veterans just stop, and the rookie just does a lap by themselves. I don't know. It's a hockey thing.
Okay.
It's a way to haze rookies. Like, oh yeah, rookie, you're going to lead the team out onto the rink for warm-ups. And then everybody stays in the tunnel, and the rookie just comes out and skates a lap by themselves.
Oh, geez.
As far as hazings go, I think that's pretty tame. So
yeah. NBA stuff is usually carrying bags and stuff, although they do a lot of pranks. The funniest one I heard was kind of persuading a rookie on his rookie contract to get a new car and kind of give him like ideas of details, what to do, make sure you get this type of leather seating, et cetera, and like just really build it up, and a lot of them will go with it or whatever. You'll see, usually they'll get a new car and then fill it with popcorn. Like just fill the entire thing with popcorn.
Nice. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of hazing goes on in the NFL, carrying pads and such. All right. By the way, I'm recording on Audition.
As am I.
All right. Ready in 3, 2, 1. All right. By the way, when you're speaking, what's your waveform look like? Are you mostly in the yellow?
Yeah. I'm in the green bordering to yellow, like mostly yellow.
Okay. That's perfect. As long as, I would say I want you somewhere around, I'd say maybe, I want you somewhere in the, do you see at the bottom with the levels?
Yeah.
I want you somewhere in the 20s, like maybe -30 to -18, preferably if you're in that range in the dBs.
I got you. Oh, okay.
I mean, if you're a little higher, a little whatever, then that's fine, as long as you're not coming across because
I know. I got it.
And I would have to, like I said, it did it automatically, but it just
I got you.
Sound good.
I got you.
All right. And let's get started now that we wasted that half hour.
It's never a wasted time with you, man. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you, bro. Appreciate that. All right. Let's count this down then in 3, 2. Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is issue number 103, Luke Cage, Power Man himself, the hero for hire. Let me say that again while I'm not dropping things.
I was going to say, what the hell was that?
Yeah, that was just a little fidget thing that I had that I dropped. It was, because, ADHD. The Power Man himself, the hero for hire, Luke Cage. Side note, before we get started, this is going to serve as our season finale. I know we had previously said that we were going to take a break right around Thanksgiving. And then when we did the Mental Health Avengers last week, and then we looked at the schedule and we said, oh, this is coming out the day before Thanksgiving. Well, we can push Clones back until January. That's not the type of episode that is going to, there's no time factor there with the Clones episode. So we can push that one to January. Also, when we come back, side note, we will be opening with episodes on Maxwell Lord for the Wonder Woman 1984 movie, which is coming out on Christmas Day. Thank you, HBO Max. And then to tie into WandaVision, which is starting on Disney Plus on January 15th, we will be doing an episode on the Wanda Vision relationship. And then we'll get into the Clones. So that's what you have to look forward to in January. Other thing is, if you're listening to this on the release date or like, a day or two later, I will be doing another live stream for Extra Life. For those of you who know, I have been involved with this fantastic organization for many, many years. And so on Saturday, the 28th, I will be live streaming my play of Super Mario 64, a classic if ever there was one. And I will be playing from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And in those 7 hours, the goal is get as many of the 120 stars as possible. And so if you go to my Extra Life page, and I'll have links in the show notes, if you go to my Extra Life page and you donate $5, you get to guess how many stars you think I will actually acquire in those 7 hours. And the person who guesses the closest without going over will win a $50 Amazon gift card. So all of the money will go towards Children's Miracle Network and Children's Specialized Hospital in New Jersey, 13 locations across North and Central New Jersey, helping to impact the the lives of many, many kids every year. And this year we are focusing money on their COVID relief fund to help offset some of the costs for COVID care for the patients that are currently in the hospital that may have been impacted by the virus, and just some of the other various associated costs. So good cause. You can watch me play a game that I know Doc and I spent a lot of time playing in high school. A lot of time playing in high school. Time that we probably should have spent doing homework or studying. And Doc, in fact, was... and I know he's still lords this over me 20-something years later. He got all 120 stars in Mario before I did.
Yep. And that's with a couple of day head start on your part, because I didn't even have the game when you first got it.
Yep. So I was playing it. I remember Phil gave me the strategy guide to unlock all 120 coins. It was like photocopied in like piss poor black and white quality, back when gaming guides, physical gaming guides, were still a thing. We're old folks. So anyway, I'll have the links to my Extra Life page, and I'll be streaming that on my Twitch page, which is twitch.tv/Anthony Sitko. So you can check that out. Like I said, Saturday, November 28th at 10 a.m. So now that we got all the housekeeping out of the way, Luke Cage, as requested by Ruby, our present level patron. And Luke Cage was created by Archie Goodwin, Roy Thomas, George Tuska, and John Romita Sr. in Luke Cage Hero for Hire #1, June 1972. And so if you are at all familiar with the Netflix series of Luke Cage, some of his backstory and the general characterization is going to be very, very familiar to you. I think they did an amazing job. Che Hadari Coker and the crew, Mike Coulter playing Luke Cage. I think they did a fantastic job really bringing Luke to life and modernizing him in a way that made sense while still paying tribute to the roots of the character. So Carl Lucas grew up in Harlem with his best friend Willis Stryker, but Carl left the gang lifestyle while Willis embraced it. So after Willis's girlfriend left him and sought Carl's help, Willis framed Carl and had him sent to prison, where he ended up was beaten and abused repeatedly by a racist guard. So he volunteered for an experimental procedure about cellular regeneration, but the guard tampered with the experiment in an attempt to kill Carl, and the procedure gave him unbreakable skin and super strength. So he escapes prison, he returns to Harlem, changes his name to Luke Cage, and he sought to making living as a hero for hire. So he befriends Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, and the two of them partner up, and they have many, many adventures. And that's your recommended reading, by the way, is the Power Man and Iron Fist books from the 70s. Just classic Marvel stories. So later on, he has a drunken one-night stand with Jessica Jones. We did an episode on her, and the two begin dating after Jessica reveals that she's pregnant, and then they end up getting married and form a quite kick-ass superhero couple. So during Civil War, he and Jessica work as part of the Secret Avengers, which are aligned with Captain America, sort of working underground, out of in the shadows, essentially, out of the spotlight, in opposition to Tony Stark and his pro-registration group. And then Luke later takes the lead of the New Avengers team, and he tries to learn how to balance a work-life situation, but he ends up leaving the team to focus on taking care of Jessica and their daughter, Danielle. And but he still does manage to assist heroes when Harlem or New York needs saving. But the key thing is that Luke is definitely much more of a street guy than these global or space threats. Luke is not going to be the guy that goes out into space to battle on the blue area of the moon or take on these large monsters. But if the Magi is popping up in New York, or Hydra's trying to run some shady stuff going on in Harlem, or just in New York in general, Luke Cage is your guy, especially if there's money to be made doing it.
Just to add a little bit to that background, when the character was created, it was clear that what they were trying to do was get the zeitgeist of Shaft, of Superfly, of the type of, now we may refer to him as blaxploitation, but I feel like that's too demeaning. The whole point was creating someone in the comic book world that resonated with people that clearly were still trying to find their voice in a highly changing, volatile world. And although it didn't always have to be political, it definitely had to introduce people to the culture that a lot of people now think of when they think of the 70s and early 80s, and do it in a way that clearly is going to grow the fan base. So if you look at it in hindsight, sometimes the language that they use seems a little off base or just doesn't quite fit. It's because a lot of what they were saying, they had to really censor due to the code, but enough people that grew up in that era know exactly what they were trying to get across, and that's why this character has endured. And even with the reboot, it still keeps that feel to it. That's what I really appreciate about it. And seeing Marvel, when they made the character in that image for the screen and watching it on Netflix, I thought it with Daredevil. I definitely thought it with Jessica Jones, but Luke Cage, for whatever reason, spoke to me in a way that says, this is the essence of why people get into comic books. Even if it wasn't the comic, this is what everyone has been waiting for pretty much their whole lives. At least that's the way I felt about it.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. And I was going to say, you know, obviously as a black man, you're going to resonate with Luke Cage in a way that I could not. I will say that going back and reading some of those very early stories, the dialogue in particular, I think, was very much written in the style of, it's gonna try to sound woke or whatever. It's white people trying to write black, and it comes across as like the joke from Airplane. Excuse me, stewardess, I speak jive. You know, right. that over the top sort of style, like the Sweet Christmas, and you know, everybody's like very flashy and showy and such. And so it definitely comes across now, reading it in 2020. You're like, ooh, this would not fly nowadays. But at the time, he was the first African-American hero to headline his own comic book, or one of them. And so it was a situation where, you know, again, I don't want to say this as speaking as a white man, but at the time, it was one of the few positive representations of a black hero that was present in comics.
Yeah, there's no question. You take what you can get, and that's the part. Even the airplane skit that you mentioned, it wasn't nearly as offensive for many people as you would think, because the whole point on both sides, on one hand, if you're looking at it, yes, it's supposed to be humorous. On the other hand, it was more along the lines of, wow, this person's really trying to bridge a gap that they just don't understand. And that's what I noticed reading Luke Cage, those early comics. I appreciate the effort and the fact that it was being made in that realm when not many people were trying to. All right, I'll go with it. I can roll with that. And I'm putting myself in that era and saying, is that how other people would take it? And in all honesty, yeah, I think so. Obviously, if I'm wrong, or if my opinion is a minority of a minority, then I'm glad to hear other opinions. So please let us know. I don't want to pretend and say my view is the right view or whatever. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that's how I was reading it growing up.
Oh, I think that's definitely the case. And I don't know that anybody is necessarily going to say, oh, well, you as a black man, you speak for all black people when you provide your opinion of Luke Cage and so on and so forth. We've established no race, no group is a monolith. So, but it is interesting to hear your perspective as a black man on Luke Cage and on the history of that character. So let's segue then into the issues. So the first thing that I want to discuss is the fact that, and I did mention this a little bit in the background, he is a street level guy. Basically always has been, always will be. Luke Cage is very much focused on the small crimes, the small stuff, so to speak, but it does tend to have a more direct impact on the day-to-day lives of his community. So that does endear him to people, and it does endear him to his neighborhood of Harlem, but it does occasionally put him at odds with other heroes because they're looking at the big picture. They're looking at trying to save the world. And Luke is like, I'm just focused on Harlem. I'm just focused on my neighborhood. That's something that we've done some street level heroes, but I don't know that too many of them really key in on just exactly that focus and that mindset as Luke Cage.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And this is going to remind me of something that's been rattling around in my brain, I'd say, for the past 3 or 4 years, and I've never even mentioned it to you. I've always had this idea recently of a book, and I wanted it to be a total deconstruction of as many parables as I could think of and what they get right and what they ignore, because the idea of a parable is to tell a particular lesson. So with Luke Cage, it reminds me of the parable of the babies floating down the river. I don't know if you've ever heard this one. The idea that there's a local village that has a large riverbed, and usually they're able to fish, they have local farms, things are okay. And then out of nowhere, one day, one child is floating in a basket down the river, and I'm not referring specifically to Moses or anything. I'm saying the point is the villager picks them up, and then there's another and another and another. And all the villagers now, they're dropping everything left and right to help gather these children out of the water and say, what on earth is going on? And there's one person that actually stops things, takes the time and says, I want to find out what's going on upriver. So the moral of that is supposed to be, when you have a lot of things that are happening in the immediacy, take the time to zoom out and look at the larger view. Focus on what may be the original cause. My counterpoint to that is, if too many people do that, then you end up with a lot of babies drowning downstream. So there has to be a balance. Luke Cage is a part of that balance. He's the one, because so many people, especially superheroes, have learned the lesson that you need to get to the root cause of things, that you forget to do the day-to-day, quote unquote, menial tasks that we all take for granted. And I think the corollary to our regular lives is the number of times, and I'm just as guilty as anyone with this, of zooming out and thinking about, what's my overall plan? What am I looking to do with my life? How are things going? And getting into all these esoteric philosophical discussions while forgetting about the day-to-day of what your regular work is supposed to be, or having just the standard conversations and contact with the people you love, and all of those things that really are what are supposed to enrich our lives. And I don't want to say taking them for granted, although that may be a part of it. It's more along the lines of finding a way to make sure that you're keeping the immediate contact points truly immediate, making sure that you're enjoying the moment and not just looking at the destination. So someone like Luke Cage that's in a city urban environment with a lot of people that may have similar struggles to him, that's going to pull him in even more to want to help those around him, because they're much more relatable to him. And when you get to the point that you're dealing with other people that don't live near you, that don't always communicate with you on a regular basis about what's going on in their personal lives, but are willing to say what the latest supervillain is trying to construct or scheme against the rest of the universe, it really creates that disconnect that's going to create emotional tension. And Luke, although he isn't always demonstrative, he is very forceful. He may not try to yell and scream about everything that's going on, but you know he's in the room when he's there. And so someone that commands that type of presence, trying to say, niche down, scale back, don't worry so much about all those other things when right now we have someone that's suffering or someone that's hurting. What do we do for that one person in this moment? That may not end up saving the universe, but it does allow that other person to know that even people at someone like Luke Cage's level really does care. So I think we need both. This is not a rail against those of us that are looking at the big picture, but it is a good reminder for those of us that don't always stop and smell the roses. At least that's the way I like to interpret some of this back and forth that he has with the other heroes. One of the people that he connects with sometimes is Spider-Man, because at least he understands Spider-Man's sense of humor. He gets that he's a New Yorker too. And even though he's off doing his other things, when he comes to town, he knows that they're going to be able to work together. Some of the other people that he doesn't see that much, they can go probably pound sand. But once again, I may be interpreting that a bit loosely for the sake of getting my point across, but I think that summarizes exactly why someone like Luke Cage would be so much about the streets. Is because too many people are worried about like everything else.
It's the expression, to the world you may just be one person, but to one person you are the world kind of thing. The idea that it all does scale, and there is that perspective that Luke Cage understands that to some people, Harlem is their world. Like, yes, okay, we understand that there's this big giant planet, and I think in Infinity War, Spider-Man puts it best. He said, I can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood. So I do get on that level that there is a need for, as you said, the really big picture, but there is also it's the immediacy of the connection. And I think that's what garners Luke such fantastic goodwill in his community, because he's out there, he is present. You know, the folks in Harlem, they're not going to see Captain America. They're not going to see Carol Danvers. They're not going to see the X-Men. They're not going to see those heroes making a difference in the world, which they absolutely are. And and as you said, not to take anything off of them, but they see Luke. They know he is in their community. They know that he is working for them, both literally and figuratively. And we'll get to that, later on, but that he has that immediate connection. And that's what garners him the respect. And that's why, as you said, when he enters a room, he has that presence. It's not just his size and his strength. It's the aura of, I'm doing good, but I'm going to make it connect. I'm going to connect it to the human aspect of it. I'm going to make sure that the people are taken care of. And it's not just, we're going to punch this alien in the face and save the planet. It's, I want to make sure that homes are saved. I want to make sure that the people in this area are taken care of. And it's the people, and this goes to life in general. It's the people who are able to make those human connections on that kind of a level that I think garner the most respect and the strongest connection. And those are the people that you go to bat for. Those are the people that you'd walk through hell for, is the people that have your back and make that personal connection. I see, I don't know, celebrities all the time, and they're out doing great things, and I'm not knocking any of them, but if they're not making that personal connection, if they're not taking the time to get to know me and my area and my needs, then it's like, yeah, okay, that's nice, but this guy, he's a real hero, kind of thing. So I think that's an important thing, and that's, as you said, is one of the reasons why Luke is a hero that's endured as long as he has, and also been able to evolve with the times that we see, especially in the time of the Bendis run and New Avengers, etc., that he goes from being the stereotypical blaxploitation character and even just the palling around with Danny all the time to someone who could realistically lead the Avengers team and not be seen as is this a minority thing or whatever? Like, no, Luke is legit. He earned that spot. So that's a credit to the character and a credit to the writers for making it believable and realistic and grounding it in that real sense of personal connection.
Agreed.
Sorry, my allergies been kicking my ass all day. I'm trying not to like sniffle and sneeze and shit on camera. Okay. Before we get started with the second issue, I don't formally have a third one.
I have something it's kind of ad-libbed, but it's going to be important, and I'd rather not say what it is just so I can. Don't worry, it'll be on point. It'll be on target. But
I'm not arguing. I'm not disagreeing with you. Okay, I trust you.
Yeah. Okay.
So the second thing, and this is something that again doesn't apply to every character we've done. There are a handful of characters that have families, but Luke in particular is very much a family man. Like, first and foremost, he will not endanger Jessica and he will not endanger Danielle. And so much of even some of the conflicts that we see between him and Jessica are over how much should they go out and continue to serve as heroes when they know that they have a child. And that does create some friction between him and Jessica. That's also one of the reasons why they have a superpowered nanny, Squirrel Girl, because they know that if somebody comes after Jessica or Luke and tries to do anything to Danielle, they need somebody there to protect Danielle. But the idea of putting family first and saying, you know what, I'm gonna leave the Avengers team because I need to be with my family. That's not something that we see regularly. And it does happen, but it's not something that we see regularly, and it's certainly not something that we've discussed with most of the heroes or most of the characters that we've talked about on the show. So just from that perspective, as we are both family men first and foremost, I think that at least personally, you and I can absolutely appreciate and understand that connection to our families, that we would do anything for our kids and our wives. But from a hero perspective, what is a little bit of a difference there with Luke?
So with Luke and his family, I think it also has to do with, depending on what background you're looking at or what experiences he's had. I know we talk about this so much. He's experienced loss too. It's not as if he takes for granted that everybody that's in his life is going to stay there. So he really does cherish the idea that people that care about him and that he cares about, he actually has access to them and can spend quality time with them. And yet, he's in an environment that has the expectation that when things go wrong, you're supposed to drop everything at the immediate inkling that something is going to be disastrous for something local to him or somewhere else in the universe, as we already discussed. So when you have the expectation that as a hero, let's bring it back to the real world, as a first responder, as essential personnel in your job, as the vocal leader of a local group that people will call you on to put out a statement, as someone that's a leader in your church, as someone who volunteers when no one else will. If you're that type of person and yet you know that you hold family close to you, you are constantly in conflict. And the good news is you can look at it as a potential win-win situation because no matter what you do, you're going to be doing good in the world. But on the other hand, from an emotional standpoint, for many people, it doesn't work that way. You actually end up starting to drain yourself depending on how often you're spending time away from your family, how long you spend your time away from your family, how much intermediate contact. Is it a phone call? Is it day to day? Is it weeks or months at a time? Depending on what your expectations are and what those other human beings' expectations are, because we know this is not in a vacuum. We may be dealing with Luke Cage himself, but that doesn't mean we can't consider the perspectives of his daughter or Jessica Jones. And if you want to know just how feisty Jessica Jones can be, listen to that episode. Then we know that it's not going to be always the greatest dynamic. Yes, we want people to support us, but we also don't want to feel like we have people that are quote unquote holding us back. So, heaven forbid, people are trying to make decisions, let's say, about their career or a hobby or something else that may actually take up a piece of time. That doesn't mean that they're trying to weaken the connection with the rest of the family. However, for better or worse, some people may have certain conflicted feelings about that. And unless there are lines of open communication, some people, including someone like Luke Cage, may just let that fester for a while and not discuss it. And if those emotions are not discussed with the people that are having them, along with the original person, then you could kind of see you don't need superpowers to figure out how badly this could explode. So, this is all something that's done in the background of our lives. This is something that we really do make a conscious choice every day. Every day that you spend going somewhere else, if you're going to a job, that is less time that you're spending with your children, with your siblings, with your parents, with your spouse. That doesn't have to be a bad thing as long as you recognize it's a conscious choice. The problem is we all go on autopilot. We all take it as a system that is going to stay the same. And this year has proven time and time again that the more you think things are going to stay the same, then the quicker and more drastic they're going to change. So Luke is thankfully very thick-skinned, but that doesn't mean the emotions of Jessica and Danielle won't be able to pierce it. If he needs to think of that first, it allows him to make clear and wise decisions. If he puts it near the back burner, then he may find that he's more alone than he first realized. That's true for all of us. And I apologize if it sounds like I'm proselytizing. That's not my intention, but it is something that I feel strongly about. And my point is, as a doctor, when I'm away from my family or I get called in for something, or I'm taking that phone call after midnight or whatever it is, I always do it with the knowledge that I have my wife and my daughter right beside me. And if at any point that they express that they don't feel like I'm there, then things will change very quickly. I'm thankful that I have an employer that understands that and make sure that they point out to all of their staff that family comes first. And for any of you, not that I'm saying it's an official call to action, if any of you have that feeling about what you're doing, don't put yourself in financial stress, but please make sure that you're considering what type of balance you need to create in your life so that the things that you consider to be your priorities are really put first.
Absolutely. And it's funny when you mention autopilot, the first thing I thought of was the movie Click with Adam Sandler, where he gets the magical remote and is able to fast forward through his life, and then it begins doing it automatically. And so much of the conflict in the movie is because he is, on autopilot for most of his life and just takes his family for granted. And it isn't until the end of the movie, spoiler alert for like a 15-year-old movie, that he's dying and he realizes, oh, I had these amazing people near me and I pushed them away because I didn't take the time to appreciate them and I didn't do enough things for them, and I got so caught up in the trappings of work that I forgot why I was doing all this in the first place. And as you said, with this pandemic, I think it's really shown a light on so much of what it is that we're doing these days. And I know, at least me personally, spending every day with my son, it's fantastic. Now, I love him and he's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And I am incredibly grateful and mindful of what it is that I do what I do. I do appreciate when I do get to leave the house, because it's that whole absence makes the heart grow fonder. But it's funny, as soon as I'm out of the house and I'm working in the office for the particular day, I'm missing him, or it's quiet and I'm like, I just I enjoy getting to just go and give him a hug when I can, or he'll just come run up to me and ask me to read him a book, or he wants a snack or whatever. And it's just those little moments that I get to experience every day while I'm working. And it just really rings true that, that's why I do what I do. And so that's why I'm going to therapy. And that's why I applied for a promotion with my job. And that's why I do all these things that I do, because it's about him. And I'm not going to do anything at the end of the day that isn't to help him have a better life. But also at the same time, there is that balance of needing to spend time with him and so on and so forth. I mean, at the beginning of this year, I was like, I need to get a job that'll let me work more, let me spend more time at home so I can spend time with my family. Well, I got what I wished for. Anybody who wanted to work from home because they wanted to spend more time with your family, congratulations, you got it. We got, this is like the monkey's paw, like kind of situation, but it does ultimately, at least for me personally, and I do try and be mindful of this as much as possible, to your point, is, focusing on getting to see my wife every day, getting to see my son every day, and getting to just spend time with them and love them and appreciate them. And that helps fill my cup, so to speak, so that I can keep doing what it is that I need to do. And I understand that, it's the same way for you, and it's the same way for Luke. So, and as long as each one of us, as you said, we'll make it the call to action, I suppose. Focus on why it is you're doing what you're doing. And if you find that your work is taking you away from your family too much, to the point that it's creating a problem with your relationship with them, do a reframe, re-examine, and see if there's something you can change. Even in the midst of a pandemic, there are still people who are hiring. It's obviously not all over the place, but if you can switch to a job that has a little more flexibility for you, or offers you benefits that you don't have with your current position, certainly take a look. As Doc said, make sure you're still financially able to provide. I just don't want. I'm afraid somebody's going to come back. Capes on the couch told me to quit my job and spend time with my family. Yeah. That's not what we're doing. We are saying take a reframe and just refocus on it. So for the third issue, I'll let you take your point on this one.
Sure. Something that I've noticed with Luke Cage, and foreshadowing, I even mentioned this in passing in the skit. Luke has an approach that is very common for many males in general when it comes to conflict, and it fits with his superpowers. He's fairly stoic, and I mean that not in the Seneca, the younger kind of way. I'm referring to the idea that you make sure that you put on a certain level of bravado in public, and yet when you talk to the people that you care about, that's when you kind of sort of let your guard down, but you still do it in a way that makes you seem like you're the man. And I think that ties into, as we noted before, the blaxploitation roots, but it's definitely more than that. It's something that I think is so commonplace. I was going to say in America, but I've seen it in lots of different media all over the world. So I wanted to address this because I think it's one of the most dangerous things that we have in our society. I think it's amazing that people throughout the centuries have been able to endure what they have. When you think about us dealing with this pandemic, we've just scratched the surface. When you think about World War I, and there's a reason why they were dubbed, quote unquote, the greatest generation. When you think of the atrocities during World War II, when you think of the Middle Ages, the idea that we came back from losing pretty much all of our scientific knowledge in vast parts of the world and still managed to not only recover it, but then have the greatest period of human production in the Renaissance right after that. This is amazing what human beings are able to do. And yet, I think the mindset now that we've taken is we tend to shy away from the emotional work that is necessary to process all of that on a day-to-day basis. And Luke, depending on how he's written, can really start to embody that. And if we glorify the idea that you just stuff things down too much, then we're going to end up doing what seems like short-term benefit, but then long-term detriment. I'm really calling out anyone that's doing this, and I'll admit I'm biased because I see it so readily in males, but I'm sure there are females that do this too. If you're listening to this podcast, first of all, I know it's less likely that you're in that category, but I know there are people around you that still fit that mold. And I just want to make sure that we at least are aware that that's what we're doing. That if we're just powering through to get to the next day by making sure we keep the bold face and not acknowledge anything, that at some point that's going to cut through. And I don't want that to continue. I want people to be able to feel comfortable. I love the phrase that's come about recently. It's okay to not be okay. That is something that I've come to appreciate more this year. I think a lot of people have. And maybe I'm the 50 millionth person to say that, but that's okay because that means there's still billions of people that haven't. So while it may not directly apply to Luke Cage, I've seen plenty and read plenty of his panels where that's clear what's going on. And if that's the thing that we're looking to model, I want to make sure that we do it from an area of strength rather than what I think it really is, which is a form of espionage for our soul. We're trying to hide from ourselves. And thank goodness we're finally, I think, in a place in society where we really can discuss this, because I'm not even sure I'd be willing to acknowledge that we were talk about it this way, even on a podcast just a few years ago, because I would have seen it myself as saying, oh, wow, are we really trying to create more snowflakes? Well, no, I don't think we're trying to create snowflakes. I think we already existed. And I think that we're all so unique and have such intricate forms that when we get together and we're causing blizzards and we are, creating a snowball effect, how deep does this analogy have to go for people to recognize that showing sensitivity or showing a certain side, not inauthentically, but in a way that allows us to reconnect with what we've pushed away for so long, I think it would be better for all of us. So I didn't recognize when we first started this podcast, I didn't recognize when we first started this particular episode that we may be going on hiatus like right this moment. But now that I know that, I feel like that sort of thing is the type of deep work that we can do for weeks at a time. Just everything that Luke Cage embodies is the quote unquote ideal man. Strong, powerful, incredibly magnetic, and yet you know that there's something under the surface that you don't always get to see. So I think we all have the opportunity to do some exploration. That's what I'm getting at. Doesn't have to be all dramatic and weepy and whatever. If that's not there, don't force it. But I think there's more than people realize. And we're finally trying to acknowledge it for what it is without embarrassment.
Beautifully said. And I would just say that I personally will be taking the hiatus to reflect on things. That's when I start my therapy session. And so when we come back in January, I would hope that our listeners will have taken the opportunity, certainly over the holidays, maybe make that your present to yourself, is reflect inward. We always focus on the holidays and giving to others. And I'm certainly the first person to say I would much rather give a gift than receive it. And there's just the joy in seeing somebody else get something that you got them, even though I am the world's worst gift giver. I suck at being thoughtful, but I try. I do. But take this opportunity, take this holiday season to give a gift to yourself and I would say forgive yourself for whatever it is that you're struggling with. Forgive yourself for not always having all the answers if you think you need to. Forgive yourself for not always being strong when you think you need to. Forgive yourself for feeling all of the things that you're feeling, and then sit on that and think about it for a while and think about what it means to be in tune with those kinds of emotions. And if you can do that in a real way, in an authentic way, as Doc said, if you're not the type of overly, if you're not a piss eye, I'm a crier. Like, so if you're not a crier, don't force a cry just because you say, well, I think I need to cry over whatever. But if it happens, don't fight it. I'm reminded of the Bruce Lee quote, be water, and go with the flow. Give yourself the time and space to feel whatever the emotions are, acknowledge them, and then say, okay, what am I going to do with those emotions? What can I power with these emotions? If you're angry about something, say, what is it that's making me angry? And what can I do with this anger? Because it has to go somewhere. You have to acknowledge the anger, but then use it to drive you to something. If something is making you particularly sad, acknowledge it and then say, okay, what can I do with the sadness? The hope is that you acknowledge and accept the emotions and that it drives you to action. Emotion without action is just self-flagellation. But if the emotion drives you to do something to better your life in some way, then you will be better for it and the world will be better for it. And to Doc's point, and to circle this back to Luke, I think if we can all acknowledge and accept our emotions, be they positive or negative, instead of repress them, then we can all collectively advance as a society, because at least we'll be coming from a place of understanding and empathy that, okay, if you're really upset about something, I see that you're upset. What can we do? How do you want to acknowledge that? Because you're not going to be angry just to be angry, but you're going to be angry to drive you and to motivate you and to change. And at the very least, if you can acknowledge and empathize with yourself and others, that's when I think we can start to affect some real change. And hopefully, if you start to do that a little bit over the holiday season with your immediate family, socially distanced, what have you, maybe you're on opposite sides of the fence about the presidential election, but take the time to focus on the emotions, and then what do we do with them? And then we all come back in January, hopefully a little refreshed, maybe a pound or two heavier, but we come back with a better mindset and able to go, okay, what can we do to make things better for ourselves and for each other?
Absolutely.
So, I always say I'm a pie in the sky optimist, and Doc is the cynic, but scratch a cynic and you find a wounded optimist underneath. So we are going to take a break, plug a couple of shows, then we get back, we'll get into treatment. Stay tuned.
Yeah, I was sitting on that because I don't know. I just felt like that's the type of thing that a lot of people needed to hear right now.
I sure should needed to hear it. never mind anybody else. I needed to hear it.
Hey.
All right. Let's just jump right back into it in 3, 2, and we're back. So treatment in universe for Mr. Cage.
It's interesting that we focus so much on how he likes to make sure he's taking care of this really tight circle, which is wonderful. But at the same time, someone of his abilities, let's be real, how many superhero characters, despite all the deaths that happen and everything else, because of the way he's constructed, he's able to survive. And to just say that it should stay in that small sphere, is that fair either? So I want to see if we can help balance that out. The best way that I think we might be able to do that would be to start having, and this is, I know, very timely for what we're doing, having some interactions with other areas. And I think someone like who's another doctor, someone like Doctor Strange, someone that is able to connect with other realms, someone else who's able to connect with other species, interplanetary species, but not at the level of we have an existential threat and you need to save us. It's more along the lines of who is the equivalent in that area for a local group, and it doesn't have to apply to their entire planet, and who would be someone that he could actually connect with. Having what I like to call nodal connections in different locations is actually a very powerful construct that I don't think gets enough play. Because I know, at least in healthcare, we do these conferences of hundreds of people, if not thousands. And we hear these keynote speakers, we get these different lectures for our continuing education and all of that. And it's great. But you ask anyone that goes to a conference, what are they really there for? They're there to mingle. They're there to talk to other people that can kind of relate to them one-on-one. Talk about different cases under similar circumstances. Maybe someone would have done something a little bit different, but at least they relate to exactly what you're saying because they had something happen to them that was incredibly relatable. So I don't think Luke Cage gets that. He puts everybody else in their own spheres of, all right, well, it's clear you guys are all the superpowered freaks and doing all this other stuff. I'm just trying to live my life. And that's okay. But if there are other people that feel similarly, or other species or other whatever that feel that way, then maybe he'll be able to take that leap and look at other ways that his technique or his view on how things should go can actually extend above and beyond where he is now. He doesn't have to do that on a regular basis. And as you said, he will step up to the plate if people come to his home turf. But my point is that if he expands just a little bit, if he just pushes his own boundaries, just that touch, then he ends up being a better hero. And I think because he exposes himself to other experiences, including the people around him that may actually become a part of his circle, he ends up becoming a better father. He ends up becoming a better husband. Because when you get to talk to other dads or other species that understand what parenting is about, or dealing with adversities that maybe he hadn't even considered, and doing it in that way, that's not as assuming as, by the way, if you don't do this, then our entire dimension is going to collapse. Taking that pressure away, that would probably be the most beneficial thing. So I would end up being almost a media coordinator for him as much as I am a psychiatrist. I would want to find out, how do I make those connections for you in an unassuming and non-threatening way so that you could still be yourself and still get some outside exposure besides exactly what you always stick to and know.
You want to make him a little more well-rounded, so to speak. Not that he's not well-rounded, but you want to put him in different situations so that he learns how to apply what he has outside of just, okay, these guys are robbing a purse. This guy's, these guys are trying to deal drugs, whatever.
Exactly.
Okay. I would love to see, Luke Cage, Agent of S.W.O.R.D.,
nice.
Operating intergalactically. He's the muscle for an interplanetary commission trying to resolve the latest skirmish between the Kree and the Skrulls.
Well, I mean, okay. Yeah, I was going to say, he has his own feeling on the Skrulls, especially when it comes to his own family, if you want to read part of
yes.
that.
I didn't think of that when I said it. I was just trying to think of...
No, I know.
Yes. So out of universe then, and I think it's befitting Luke Cage that he's such a down-to-earth guy that I don't know what you would do differently. I mean, because aside from the impenetrable skin, etc., he's really a very human character. So yeah. I don't know what you would do or say differently, but I'll let you take the lead on that.
Well, I wouldn't focus on different species, and I wouldn't focus on other superheroes or galaxies or dimensions or whatever. I wouldn't do any of that. I think just the idea that he is an African-American male in a large urban environment, who has a history of incarceration, be it fair or unfair, who has had a lot of strife with involvement in local crime and having parts of his family torn apart because of it. I wonder if there are any people that can relate to that. It's not like I did my training pretty much in that environment or anything. It's not like I wish I had done it. I wanted to get a t-shirt or make a sweater that listed where I went to school and then say over a decade of Newark education and proud of it. So yeah, this is something that I actually know pretty darn well, because this is the type of patient that is so incredibly reluctant to come into my office or to go to a clinic. It is ingrained just naturally at this point to say, you don't do that. And I'll admit that is something that we as African Americans have been trying to get the message out, that it's not a shameful thing to say that there's mental illness in the family, or there are mental health concerns for yourself. And so first is kind of piercing that barrier. And then after that, it honestly becomes pretty standard fare. What's going on in your life? What are the stressors? What is your cognitive approach to all the things that have happened before, so I know what your construct is? And then examining exactly how we can adjust it, tweak it a little bit, so that the emotional responses and behaviors that you exhibit are going to be more beneficial to you instead of harmful. That's what it comes down to, at least from my incredibly biased, because of my training, cognitive behavioral therapy approach. So I'm not saying anything that's outlandish with that. And to be honest with you, I probably could have just said that for Luke Cage in universe too. But I at least want to give some entertaining flair to it. So everything that we're talking about with this is very simple. You want to have the best life with your family. You want to make sure that you're doing the best job possible for your community. That's wonderful. Let's just work together on what makes you tick and what is going to allow for you to do that in a way that's even more enjoyable than what you're experiencing now. And if there are things that are not positive, that are actually causing you severe emotional anguish or difficulty with cognition, then let's see if there's a way that we can monitor that with medication, or simply talk about it in a way that's not threatening and doesn't involve people that honestly have probably heard it from you so many times that they don't know how to process it themselves. So if it sounds like I'm really skewing this and saying, hey, Black community, can we please get together and make sure that we're getting the proper care that we need? Yeah, I am. Because once again, I think if I'm going to take a hiatus, I want to make sure I get as many great points as I can out there. So please. And it's not just that. Anybody that feels like they're in a community that shuns mental health, then there are ways to get help where you don't even have to create that level of acknowledgement. But you'd be surprised if you're willing to take that leap for the first time yourself, and just how much the community around you might actually open up a little bit more. They may not. They may still keep their ears and eyes closed. But even if it's just one more person than it was before, then I think it can be beneficial for generations to come.
I think that's very well said, and I would certainly agree with you based on just talking to fans and talking and having an ear to the ground as we do with this show, that it's not just the Black community that has, I don't want to say an aversion to discussions of mental health, but certainly it's not as well received as it is in other communities. It's not just the Black community. There are a number of minority communities where there is this belief and this pervasive mindset throughout the community that seeking assistance with mental health is a weakness, and that any weakness is not to be shown. And I think, speaking as a white person, that it comes perhaps from a place of they can't afford to appear weak because they have to compete with white people. that they have to appear to be the ideal minority in order to accomplish everything that they need to get done because of this internalized struggle because of the racism that it puts on the community at large. So therefore we have to be perfect because that's how we can compete against white people. So
yeah, that's a great point.
At least that's, again, from my discussions with other non-white people and also just reading things, etc.
So there's yeah, I also acknowledge and affirm that it's definitely many different layers of cultures, not just even thinking of race or ethnicity. Also, as a doctor, doctors do not actively seek treatment. And I can tell you from recent surveys within my own employer's network that we have noticed, we've given information and provided opportunities for physicians to receive assistance if they felt it necessary. Just someone to talk to, no obligations, no extra cost, and no one took us up on the offer within the network. That says a lot. That basically says that that same feeling, that same thought is there pervasive at that level. And yet, I'm going to make one little tweak. The idea that someone can help you process your thoughts and your responses to external stimuli and the actions that are then going to produce a better result in the future based on how you frame things for yourself. If I change it from saying psychiatrist, social worker, therapist, counselor, I don't use any of those words. And all of a sudden, if I'm a CEO of one of the Fortune 500 companies and an overwhelming number of them use a life coach, and the number of physicians that I know that also have life coaches, all of a sudden it's seen as something that you are doing right by yourself. You are actually just going ahead and being a go-getter. You are doing so much to make your company, yourself, your family all better because you are getting the right coaching. You change that one little term and you add a couple of zeros to the amount it costs, and magically people look at it as a positive. That's fascinating to me. That's something that that's something that I've observed so much. So I'm thinking to myself, so all this time, instead of us referring to ourselves as clinics and hospitals and all those other things related to mental health, if we had simply called ourselves mental fitness centers or mental enhancement centers and referred to ourselves as alternative life coaches or emotional coaches and made sure that we did glossy 8x10s with just how great everything was and how smiling we were with the proper graphics and all that stuff. Maybe that would have been way more effective than just giving the basic facts that you are not alone, help is out there. And we've had years and years of training to make sure that people are able to survive, let alone thrive. Pardon me on that last part. I'll admit that was a little bit of a rant. And to be honest with you, I think life coaches are fantastic. I didn't mean to make that sound like it was a negative.
I think mental fitness center sounds like a multi-billion-dollar idea. I think we need to trademark that and get it out there. Mental fitness centers, mental enhancement centers, whatever. Admittedly, it does sound like some Scientology type shit, but you know, they make money off of it. Why can't we?
Oh man. I mean, you know, I really don't have a comeback for that.
Hook people up to a what looks like a lie detector test and say, "Oh yeah, your thetans are through the roof, yeah, and your midichlorian count is really high too. Oh yeah, let's."
All right, so now that Hollywood is about to destroy us in one quick stroke,
that's all right. Tom Cruise doesn't listen to us. I think we're fine. You know, and it's we were doing so well there for a while. We were just we were really real. We were authentic and everything, and then I had to go and shit on it. I know.
No, it's not even that. It's that I sometimes I'll put these disclaimers after all that, and yet, in all honesty, because ethically, I can't say I support Scientology. So if you lose me because of that as a fan, please don't. But I also understand, because I'm not going to pretend and say that I support it. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's not based in science. Forget whether or not it's based in science. The fact that they are actively, I think, doing harm from a mental health standpoint for some people, that really rubs me the wrong way. So shots fired.
That's fine. We're going on hiatus anyway. We'll see whether or not we come back.
We're going to come back, people. Okay, I'll give a disclaimer for that. Yes, we're coming back.
Yes, we're coming back in January unless we get sued to high heaven. So we are going to put all this together in a skit, and with the help of our good friend Dave from the Perfect Package podcast, we are going to get Luke Cage on Dr. Issues' couch. All right, so I'll read the lines just so you have something to play off of.
Sure.
And I'll insert Dave's dialogue once he sends it to me.
So before you said that you weren't going to do it, which by the way was a great call, you want to know what I envisioned you doing? I envisioned you doing your voice that you do when you would talk about Farouk. I swear that's 100% what was going through my head.
Not to meet you. I'm trying to figure that out myself. Damn. I don't think I need a psychiatrist.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Don't do it because all I'm going to do is laugh. All right. So now that I have that, I unintentionally put that back in my head.
Like the Ultimate Warrior, just walk into Earth.
All right. Give me a few seconds. Now I got to reset. Okay.
Okay. Right. No, but okay. Seriously, I'll give you.
Thank you. After we're done, do it all you want. I don't care. I'm just. All right, I'm good. Whenever you're ready, because I know you got the nasally.
No, you're the.
I know. I'm going to bring you in, but I'm just saying I want to make sure you're ready. That's all.
Yeah, I'm just reading.
Okay, cool. All right, in 3, 2, 1. Hello, Luke. I'm Dr. Issues.
Nice to meet you.
So, what can I do for you? What brings you to my office?
I'm trying to figure that out myself. No offense, but I don't think I need a psychiatrist.
Well, was this someone else's idea?
Maybe, but I'm not trying to spread anybody else's business. I'll just say you come highly recommended.
Well, I'm flattered, but I won't dwell on it. Come on, man. You seem like you're a proud guy. I mean, I don't want to pull information out of you. I mean, if you want to be on your way.
You always get this defensive? I mean, I'm not knocking you. Just give me a chance. Trust is earned. You feel me?
I feel you. I apologize. I have to process my own expectations. You exude a pretty big aura of strength.
Fancy way to say I'm yoked. They all say that. Tired of it.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear that last part.
Didn't need to. I'm saying no. What makes you different than talking to someone I know? You're not Danny. You're not Jessica or Danielle. You have this fancy office and degrees, diplomas, licenses, and shit. How can you possibly do anything for me?
I'm not as out of touch as you think.
Ever been to jail?
Only to see patients.
Ever been in the streets?
Dude, I trained in Brick City.
Not the same thing.
I'm not trying to get fake street cred. You know, I'm not trying to say I went through what you went through. How could I? But have they? Your family?
Don't need to talk about them just yet. You're not done talking about me.
Wow. What's with the chip on your shoulder?
Don't say that. Don't say that. I'm usually a chill guy, but this office deal ain't working for me. I'd rather be in a barbershop or down on the corner. You dig?
Actually, I do. You know, a lot of people don't know about the barbershop. You know, that's what's up. You know, some docs even, they try and get more people to get checkups that way by going down to the barbershop and just letting them know, like, you know, make sure you're okay.
Smart. Meet people where they at. I like that. No pressure. Let's do it. Oh, man. I can't believe you got us a local shop to ourselves. Yeah, man. I know a few people can get you squared up proper. Now we can talk. People got me stressing. Like, Power Man is supposed to be the savior of the city. I just want to breathe, you know?
Gotcha. But you do save the city. You know, you're respected.
A little. Mostly people are shook. They don't have to fuck with me or my family. I'm like the ultimate bouncer, and my loved ones are the only ones allowed in the club.
Ooh, good analogy. You want low key, but Everyone else wants you on demand 24/7.
I've tried splitting the difference, making my job, get paid. Then I'll just be a hero on the clock. But there's no benefits for that. And every mercenary I've met has more problems getting out of the game. Then I think about relocation. Nah, it just follows me.
There's an old saying, no matter where you go, there you are.
Well, that actually would be nice for a change. I don't mind being by myself. I mean, I like being in my own spot. I'm sure you're used to dealing with people that have their priorities all messed up. That ain't me. I'm not about the noise.
Well, mindset begets expectations. I mean, how do you invite that silence so there's no noise?
I don't know. Well, first off, I'm not totally sure what you mean by that, but if you're saying that I'm letting people get to me, maybe, but nobody seems to notice that.
Well, just an observation, but just an observation, but sometimes you come across as stoic. And that can make you look like a cool hand under most conditions, but then people can't really read you.
Like hell they can't. Let's be honest. If a big muscular black man is coming at you, what you think is running through most people's minds?
See, that's called projection. You have a certain expectation of what people think of you based on appearance alone, but then you act in a way that's going to match that expectation. You give up control that way.
All right, but let me hit you with this. Is it wrong?
Probably not. You got me there. Unfortunately, though, you can't control other people's mindsets, but you can control your own.
Well, I guess that's where you come in then.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it.
All right, how about this? You meet me once in a while in the shop. I talk to you, and I make sure you get your cut for free. Deal?
No offense. Based on going rates, that's way less than what I charge for a session.
Oh, come on, man. Don't be bougie. I could offer my protective services for free, too. Money don't buy happiness.
Yeah, but neither does poverty, man. All right. It's a deal.
Now you just made the same type of decision I had 2 years ago.
Like I said, not as out of touch as you thought.
My man. So how about them Knicks, huh?
Yo, the draft picks they got, including that one that's like straight from New York, that's so awesome, man. Yeah, for real. Yeah, it's, you know what? As long as they don't go wild in free agency, yeah, it's cool.
Like I said, I knew you'd have something to say about the Knicks and everything. And
yeah, Obi Toppin actually is from New York. He was an unexpected, like, meteoric rise in the draft, and he was just crying during the interview, just so happy. You know, like he's like, I'm home. He's like, I can't believe this is happening. You know, so yeah, it was a real touching piece. Now, whether or not he actually works out is a different story, but just the story itself is awesome.
That sounds cool. I'm happy to hear that. Okay. And my name is Farouk. And back in 3, 2. Thank you, Dave. Awesome job. Appreciate that. Go check out p3show.com for our friends Chad and Dave over at the Perfect Package podcast. I've had the opportunity to guest on the show a couple of times now, and one of these days we will get Chad and Dave on the show in some fashion. Not 100% certain how we're going to make that happen, but we'll make it happen one day. So that's going to do it. Recommended reading. If you can find the old Power Man and Iron Fist issues, either in trade, I'm sure there's Epic Collections, the big sort of catalogs, not catalogs, but you know what I mean, the compendium, so to speak, of those old 70s, late 70s, early 80s books. I think Roy Thomas worked on them for a spell, and Gene Colan and all those. I mean, basically, going back and looking at some of the names on those stories, it's like a who's who of some of the best talent that Marvel had at the time, of all time, frankly. Some of the greats worked on those stories. So go back and check out those stories, as well as the New Avengers run where Luke was the head of the team post Civil War. Some good stories there as well. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode, and that's going to wrap it up for season 4 of our show. As we said at the top of the show, this is going to be the season finale. We will come back in January, back from our hiatus after the holidays, a little refreshed, a little full of turkey and all sorts of snacks and goodness. And hopefully I will not be much heavier than I am now. I'm seriously trying to lose some weight because I got the Tough Mudder in May, if it's going to happen at all. Who knows at this point with COVID if there's going to be a Tough Mudder, but I'm certainly going to at least do some exercise to train for it. And if you've been checking out the Napod Pomo videos on YouTube, I'm going to try and do those a little bit more frequently, and maybe we'll see if I continue them past November, or maybe into December over the break. That'll be something that'll keep me a little occupied and at least a little connected to the fans. So thank you everybody who's reached out so far, enjoyed the videos, connected with us on social media, Discord, Facebook group, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. We've got some good stuff planned for the show when we come back in January. So stay tuned to all of the channels, whichever way you follow us. We'll have some cool news over, like I said, a little bit over the hiatus. We won't be completely silent, no new episodes, but we'll still be there. And then we come back in January refreshed and hitting the ground running with some good stuff for the show. So, Doc?
Our emotions definitely lead our power, but be careful because they can certainly place you in a cage.
Ooh. Finishing on a glorious pun. So for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much. We are incredibly thankful for all of our listeners, all of our supporters. Thank you. Have a happy and healthy end to 2020 and a joyous holiday season, whatever you choose to celebrate. And we will see you in 2021. Until next year. All right. So that's stopped. And then I'm going to open up save that, and I'm going to open up a new folder for Umbrella Academy. Did you finish?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Holy crap. Like, I did not realize we could just do weeks and weeks on just Umbrella Academy. Wow.
Yeah, right? that show, that book is like, what the fuck, man?
Woo-hoo. Okay.
So, all right, whenever I'm recording an audition now for the Umbrella Academy, so just let me know when you're ready. Here I was saying to Kat, "Oh, this is going to be a really short, not like a short session, but it's going to go pretty quickly on account of we already have the episode already. Yeah. We have everything already written, and now it's 9:45, and we're just finishing with Luke Cage."
Well, hey, is what it is.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, I betrayed myself.
Yeah. All right.
Put a quarter in your ass because you played yourself. I was like, we'll be done soon. Oh yeah, we'll be done in like an hour and a half. All right. The snaps in 3, 2, 1. All right, and we're ready to go in 3, 2. Hello, welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling, trade paperback reviews. I'm Anthony Sitko.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
This is our 9th trade paperback review. Sorry, it's a little behind, but Doc and I had some scheduling stuff. But we are finally getting around to the Umbrella Academy, Volume 1, The Apocalypse Suite. Side note, I have not yet had an opportunity to check this out on Netflix. But after reading this, I will spend some of the time on the hiatus watching this show. Because if it's anything like the book, it's going to be bad shit. Not in a bad way. It's just
I
fucking bonkers.
I can't believe I have held out this long in terms of exposing myself to this. This is in my opinion, amazing. I guess I'm kind of giving away my review, but whoo boy.
So let's just jump right in then. The Umbrella Academy, created by Gerard Way, frontman for My Chemical Romance, which is not a band I'm particularly enamored with, but to each their own. And Gabriel Ba.
Including me then, because I definitely am a fan. So
okay.
whatever.
It's not one of those situations where like they suck, whatever. It's just, it's not my cup of tea. So the book was released by Dark Horse Comics, and issue number 1 is from September 2007. So this covers the first 6 issues of the story. So Sir Reginald Hargreaves is an alien posing as a wealthy industrialist, and he adopts 7 children born to women who had previously showed no signs of pregnancy. And 6 of these children displayed superpowers, and so Reginald raised them as heroes. Number 1 is Luther, who, and by the way, they're all largely known by their numbers, which he ranks them in terms of their usefulness. So number 1 is Luther, who I don't know everything about what his original skill set is, but he later had his head transplanted onto the body of a Martian gorilla, because that's the kind of thing that happens in this book. Number 2 is Diego, who has superhuman accuracy with throwing knives. Number 3 is Allison, who can alter reality by saying, "I heard a rumor." Number 4 is Klaus, who can talk with the dead and has some telekinetic ability as long as he's sober. Number 5, no name is given for number 5, and we'll get to him momentarily. Number 6 is Ben, and we don't know that much about Ben other than he can summon a serpent from a portal in his chest. And number 7 is Vanya, who shows no powers outside of a proficiency playing the violin. Spoiler alert, that's not entirely the case. So after stopping an attack on Paris at the age of 10, the story flashes forward about 20 years after Reginald's death. The team reunites at his funeral, revealing that number 6 had died years before, but we don't really know exactly what was going on. And basically none of the team are really speaking to each other at this point. There's a lot of bad blood between most of the members. So number 5, who had disappeared sometime before, reappears after the funeral, having not physically aged past age 10, and revealed that he had traveled back through time 50 years because apparently the world ends 3 days after Reginald dies, or at least the beginning of the end of the world starts 3 days after Reginald dies.
Wait. I gotta interject. You might be thinking to yourself, if it was right after he died and we just said he just died, why would it be 50 years after the fact? It's because that's how long he took to figure out how to go back in time.
Yes, that's an excellent point. Thank you for interjecting with that, and also hitting your microphone stand. So a group of murderous robots show up and attack, and they are fought off by the rest of the reunited Umbrella Academy team, including number 7, who had left the team years prior after showing no signs of superpowers. But number 2 basically says, "You're useless. Why are you even here? I don't have a sister." And so she then leaves the fight and decides to meet up with the Orchestra of Verdampton, a group of musicians who say they can destroy the world with a piece of music. They had been courting her prior to this, and she said, "No, I'm going to go to my family." But after this argument with number 2, that starts her heel turn, so to speak. That really kicks it off, and she's like, "Well, if I have no family, then I'm going to seek revenge on the Academy." And so it's revealed that number 7 is actually the most powerful one of them all. She was being kept in check by Reginald, but I think he was giving her pills to suppress her powers. Turns out she can control sound and weaponize it. So after she is experimented on by the head of the orchestra, she calls herself the White Violin, and then declares revenge on the Academy and the world. So she goes to the Academy building. She attacks and kills Dr. Pogo, Reginald's super intelligent monkey assistant. She blows his brains out of the back of his head with a sound. So then an all-out battle ensues. Number 7 nearly kills number 3 and almost succeeds in finishing the symphony until number 5 shoots her in the head, leaving her paralyzed. And then they return to the Academy and come to find out that the building has been destroyed by the reappearance of the Eiffel Tower, which had left the planet 20 years prior during the Battle of Paris. So this entire family is just the dynamics are incredibly fucked up. There is nobody who is even close to, I guess, what's the term I'm looking for? Has their shit together. In putting it bluntly, nobody really has their shit together. Nobody is well-adjusted. Well-adjusted, that's the term I was looking for.
Yeah. This is a dysfunctional family in every classical sense of the word. And yes, it's partly because they're pulled together in such strange circumstances by a person that from the start makes it clear he's not their father. They will refer to him as dad, and it actually annoys him. So, yeah, I'm not trying to go full psychoanalysis on this. That's just really screwed up.
No argument here. Yeah, Reginald Hargreaves is definitely a character. And I think at one point we said we were going to do an episode on the monocle on Sir Reginald Hargreaves to tie in with the show, and then for one reason or another it never happened, and we pushed it off to the side. And so we have gone now over 100 episodes, and we have yet to cover anybody from the Umbrella Academy, but I think that needs to change. So to any of our patrons who want to specifically request it, do you want to add it to the list? Some of this shit seems right up Ruby's alley in terms of a character selection, or frankly, Matt, really anybody. Maybe not entirely Ariel, because this isn't DC and none of these people are associated with Batman.
But reading this, I'm like, oh, a few of them could be. Holy crap.
Oh, they absolutely could be. Any number of these folks definitely could be members of the Bat family. I think Diego / number 2 would make for a very interesting pick as a Robin, or maybe like he would probably be like a legacy Nightwing.
Yes, even his costume, that's what I thought of.
Yeah, definitely. And Vanya kind of reminds me of the visual style of it. Almost reminds me of Ink, who is a Batman Beyond villain.
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Ruby says on the Discord, "Oh, I've thought about it. I guarantee the Umbrella Academy will make an appearance next year." Well, then, there you have it. So, like I said, I mean, we could really sit down and go into some of the psychoanalysis of these characters, but I almost kind of want to save that for like an episode proper. But I will say that I think the dynamic between number 1 and number 3 was very interesting. That sort of, romantic type relationship with some pseudo incestuous undertones, because they're not technically related by blood, but they were raised as family. So there is that, protective older brother type of vibe that Luther has with Allison, but yet she's like, I heard a rumor that I was going to kiss you or something like that. Like the world is going to shit around them, and they're like, but let's have a kiss here because it's impactful to the story.
Well, okay, but if you're going to bring that up, then I'm going to go ahead and just like jump in a little bit with that. The whole point with that was her mentioning her semi-normal family sans divorce, but having a kid, and then Luther basically saying like, wait, what, you have a kid? Like, holy crap. And then her point of like, do you realize that's the stuff that's important to me? And it's ironic because, full disclosure, we're recording this right after the Luke Cage episode, so the idea that family is that important, she's saying like, yes, of course it is. And his thing is like, well, that's all well and good, but we're trying to save the freaking world here, so don't give me a guilt trip about not focusing on that part as much right now. Damn. So yeah, it's really interesting because the way they're all written, and I always give credit when writers do this, I could see everybody's side as to how they got to that point. And to do that in such a short amount of time, because this volume is pretty much, just 6 books back to back to back to back, to get all of that information and to immediately understand each of these characters, what they're experiencing, that's impressive. That is something that's really tough to do. Usually you just pick 1 or 2 and you resonate with them, and then the rest you figure as you get through the series, you'll learn more. They jumped right in, and I didn't need to understand every nuanced detail of each of these characters, and still I understood what was going on. That is tough to do. I'm giving a lot of credit.
No, absolutely. And I think it's good writing that they were able to convey such important, and again, I apologize. I'm recording this and I'm like struggling with words because I'm having an allergy attack. So my brain is not braining the way a brain should brain. So my words are failing me repeatedly. And I was so eloquent in the Luke Cage 2 episode. I pulled that shit out of my ass. I don't know what the fuck I was saying, but here I'm trying to convey much simpler concepts. And I'm like, words, people, good. So I think it's a credit to the writing that they were able to create such. Fuck, man, I'm really struggling with the words. such well-crafted and complete, realistic. None of these are the words that I'm looking for, but God damn it, I'm just going with it. Relationships and people, like, three-dimensional. Thank you. God damn it, that was really hard. Three-dimensional people and three-dimensional relationships. I'm leaving all that in. Fuck bloopers. I'm not cutting any of it. I'm just going to leave it in the episode. God damn it. We're family at this point. You know I could be stupid. That in 6 issues, you were able to create such three-dimensional relationships that you believed it. Even as unconventional though it may be, you were still able to go, okay, it totally makes sense that this alien dude takes these 6 kids together, sticks them all, raises them like family, but doesn't actually give a shit about them. And so, yeah, they're going to all be fucked up because that's what happens when you don't have a caring father figure. So you rely on each other. So naturally their relationships with each other are going to, and the bonds that they create are going to be much stronger than the bonds that they would have with Sir Reginald. And I think it's maybe number 1 who talks about that, right, like basically right after he died, that it's like, why are we even all here? Like, he didn't really do much of anything for us. Like, now I'm not saying I'm glad he's dead, but nobody here is really shedding a tear because we all kind of lost touch with each other. So there's this whole resentment that they all have individually and collectively towards Reginald that I would, again, love to explore in an episode of Capes proper. So like I said, I thought it was very well done. I'll say he writes comics, at least for me. I'm much more attached to the writing of his comics than I am the writing of his songs. But again, that's just me personally speaking. What was your thought on the artwork? It's a very interesting visual style for the book.
Yeah, I think I would
think Mignola-esque, I would say.
I was going to say, I would think less of it if it weren't for the fact that we covered the Max, which was the trippiest thing like I've ever experienced. So this, I don't know. I was so enamored with the characters for once. I didn't pay that much attention to the artwork. It didn't do anything for me per se. I can't critique it the way I usually do. There's like, it just felt like I could have read this as a book and I would have been just as satisfied, to be honest with you, because I could have filled in the blanks. Once you give me the generic description of what these characters look like, I could have filled in the blanks and been just as fine. Once again, it's a credit to the writing. Like I'm saying, I know, for example, like 5 is going to look like a kid. I got it. It's all good. Like that's all I needed. And so I feel like, how do I put it? The writing outkicked the coverage. Like it, I feel like it. The artwork doesn't do it justice. Oh God, I'm not trying to be insulting. Oh wow, I'm really sucking at this right now.
No worse than I was sucking at trying to speak earlier. So I think you're doing just fine. Like I said, it's a very interesting visual style that they have for the book. Gabriel Ba. It's B and an accented A. So he's Brazilian. I apologize. I'm probably butchering it. It's probably just Gabriel Ba. But like I said, very, I would say Mignola-esque, because the style does evoke some of that Mike Mignola Hellboy, very thick lines on the inks, lot of, I don't want to say flat colors, but chromatically it's not a ton of shading going on. The colors are, it's very angular, but I think it works. This is not, to me, I'm not gonna shit on it as much as I think you, not that I think you're shitting on it, the visual style, but I'm just saying I'm not going to knock it as much as you are. It's not exactly my cup of tea, and I will say that this is not the Wicked and the Divine. It's not it's not one of the most beautiful books I've ever read, but I think the artwork does it justice for the type of story that's being told. So I like I said, I enjoyed it enough. It didn't drag me out of the story. It didn't drag me out. And to your point, I do think that the writing was able to pull it through. And I mean, there were a couple times when I was like, what the fuck am I reading? Like, what is happening here? Who just, like, what? But when you see a monkey's brain being blown out the back of his head because of sound, and you go, okay, that looks exactly the way that I thought it would look. You go, all right, fuck it, let's do this thing. Like, at that point, I think it was like 5 issues in. I was like, all right, I'm just going to read this goddamn thing to the end. I'm here for the ride. I might as well enjoy it. It's not as trippy as the Max, as you said, but it is. It's something. It did take me a little while to get acclimated to the artwork, but then once I did, like I said, then I was okay with it. So ratings then, as we always do, we rate story and artwork separately. So Doc, I'll let you jump first with the story. What would you, on a scale of 1 to 10? You can use decimals if you so choose.
Story is a 9. I absolutely adore these types of dysfunctional family stories. There's no other way to put it. I love these types of stories. I don't know why. Maybe that says something about me. Take out the maybe. Just the idea that there was the leap, the time leap. In other words, we see the kids, and you could tell when this was written, and I'll admit this is my projection. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. When this was written, it was supposed to initially invoke this style of, all right, you have the sage mentor with these young kids, molding them into a super team that is going to take on all comers and save the world. And it's going to be amazing. No, never mind. This is definitely not that story. I just love that swerve from the start. So any story that does that, and I know at this point I'm just going to be dealing with people dealing with some really screwed up things, and all of it comes down to survival. And I'm going to invoke something that you're going to have no clue what the hell I'm talking about. It's called Infinite Rivius. It's an anime. Oh, big surprise there. The whole point is, though, it's a ship with a bunch of orphaned kids. It was meant to be more like a cruise, but the point is, or a school, I forgot exactly what, but the point is the ship ends up just off course and wandering in space, and they keep surviving these different situations and attacks, and it's kind of like Lord of the Flies, but the whole point is, ultimately, the reason why they're surviving is because the ship allows them to, because it has kind of an artificial intelligence that amalgamates all of their emotions together and all their thoughts, and the ultimate thought that comes out of it is, I want to live. I don't want to die. And that's what I'm seeing with a lot of these characters in this stuff. Just the idea, like, look, whatever's happening, we just got to make it through. I don't care what's happened before, or I don't care if you like me or not, or I don't care if I'm screwing you up even more. I just want to live. I want to survive. This is all messed up. We're all going to be messed up. Let's just go along for the ride and survive it, including the person that gets their brains blown out and ends up surviving that.
Well said. Yeah, there's definitely the vibe of, fuck it, let's just get through this. Let's just focus on what we need to right now and work worry about everything else later. Some characters more so than others. I'm not going to say I'm not going to say every character has a death wish, but there are characters that are more fuck it than others. For me, I'll give the story an 8.5. I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, not the most engrossing story. There were a couple of times where I was definitely like, I enjoyed the whole, the fucked up nature of the characters and the fucked up nature of the family. The whole Vanya not showing any powers and oh, surprise, she's actually the most powerful one. Like that was a swerve. I was just like, okay, I didn't see that coming at all. Not. But I do think that, again, as you said, the characters are engrossing enough that I was like, all right, let's do this. I've certainly read worse. Even for this series, I've read worse. So I go with an 8.5 on the story. So artwork.
Flat 5. I keep saying I'm not trying to knock it, and I guess that's what I'm doing. If you're going to talk about so many intricate things about these characters and what they must have gone through for the past 20 years, and then a character going forward in time and then coming back and all these things, I feel like there are so many missed opportunities to show more of a tapestry style. I get that it definitely gives the feeling of a wasteland at any moment. I definitely get that feel from it, but I never thought it meshed with just how dire the consequences were. If anything, I thought it was trying to convey like, yeah, it's kind of screwed up, but things are just, it almost made it seem like things were silly and not things were dire. But then, like you said, if you have people's brains being splattered, okay, yeah, you're right. They did a good job. That gets the point across. But everything else about it, I don't know. It just seems to fall flat to me. I don't know why that really came about. And once again, I think it was more like, okay, it is my fault. It is really my fault as the reviewer. I have a certain expectation when I was reading the panels as to what things would look like in my own head. And because it didn't match, it created too much dissonance for me. So I just couldn't enjoy the artwork as much. An example, because people I'm sure are wondering, well, what the heck does that mean? An example of characters that looked exactly like I thought they would based on what I'm seeing. Watching the Incredibles movies. Every one of those characters, I've always thought, that's exactly what I think they would look like. Like that makes sense. When everything I experience with that is perfect. So anything that doesn't match what I'm thinking and what I'm hearing or seeing or reading, then it just automatically gives me a negative review. I apologize.
Don't apologize. It's, you're being honest. You're being truthful about what you're reading, what you're thinking. I will give it a 6.5. Because again, I thought it's colorful. It's not the ugliest book. I thought it did what it needed to do in service of the storyline. I just would have liked to see maybe a little bit more detail. But again, I think in some ways it works, which is why I'm giving it the 6.5. It's serviceable. I'll put it that way. Again, for the story. I'd be curious to see the artist's work on a different type of story, to see if maybe it works better for a different type of story or worse. I don't know, because this is the only thing I've read with Gabriel Ba's artwork. So I will have to check them out and see what I can find to see what impact the story has and what impact the artwork has on those books. So you had what, a 9 and a 5? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's a 4. So it averages out to a 7. It averages out to a 7 for you. I had an 8. So mine averages out to a 7.5. So, okay. Which I think is fair for how I felt about it. So 7.5, it's still a passing grade. 7 and 70 is passing for you. So
yeah.
we will recommend it. I wouldn't say like go out and get it right now, but add it to the pile. If you get around to it, definitely check it out. I know there's additional stories within the Umbrella Academy saga, so I'd be curious to see, because of the characterization, not so much because of the artwork, but I'd be interested to see, because of the characters, what some of those other stories look like, how they read, etc. So I will definitely be interested in more of the Umbrella Academy universe. So maybe that'll be a future trade paperback review. But the next episode that we're going to be doing is Unity Volume 1, To Kill a King. It's our first entry into the Valiant Comics universe and all of their associated heroes. So as I'm sure you well know, all of our episodes are available on our website, capesonthecouch.live, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Capes on the Couch. Or you can email us at capesonthecouch@gmail.com. Y'all are patrons, so thank you again. We love and appreciate you for your support. Thank you to Ruby for watching / listening to us on the live stream as we record this, and looking forward to whichever Umbrella Academy character you select for our 2021 year for season 5. So, Doc, anything you want to add before we head out?
No, not really. I mean, I could understand them calling themselves the Umbrella Academy because that shit was raining heavy.
Ooh, but for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. All right. Edition is done and closed. I'm going to leave all those bloopers in because, God damn it, that was just too funny. That I was just like, the words, I just...
Well, you had me freaking corpsing on camera, man. Wow.
And I haven't taken the Benadryl yet. That's the other thing, is I wanted to take a Benadryl like right when we started recording, figuring, okay, by the time it kicks in, I'll be done and it won't impact my cognitive abilities and ability to speak. Joke's on you fuckers. I can't speak and I'm not on drugs. So ha. But all right. Side note, last thing before I forgot, before we leave.
Yeah.
I subscribed. I don't know if you saw the email, if it came to you or not. I subscribed for a year of WordPress.
Yeah.
For the capesonthecouch.com. So I'm going to spend the break. I don't know why I decided to do this right before we release our last episode, because I hope it doesn't fuck up the RSS feed. I don't think it will. I'm pretty sure Libsyn still considers everything going to the capesonthecouch.live, but the goal is to port everything over to the .com.
Yeah.
Over the hiatus, and then we'll have a more fully functional, fleshed out website. I'll have like a merch page. We can do like an about us kind of thing. We can do a lot more involved stuff directly, as opposed to just the website. And hopefully, with the buffer, we can take the time to get things done so that by the time it releases, we're ahead of the game. Maybe you can do some writing.
Yeah.
Get some writing done. I know Ariel is gonna, I have to talk to her about it, but I posed her doing some long form reviews for the website. So
okay,
we can have that once we come back.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm gonna go the fuck to bed because I am tired. So, and broadcast thanks everybody who watched.